are live. All right, we're going to call. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Corinne, can we start with a roll call, please?
Bill Lopez.
Here.
Laura Madigan.
Here.
Don Kraft.
Here.
James Burge.
Here.
Kelly Kierman.
Here. All right, thank you so much. We have a quorum. This is our first budget meeting for fiscal year 2026. And Corinne, I will let you lead us off when you're ready. Thank you.
Okay. It's a lovely shade of lilac. All right. I'm just gonna, I guess, give a little bit of an overview and then we can lead into discussion. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was just Senate Enrolled Act 1 and the property tax reforms. All the legislation that went through earlier this year is going to have quite an impact on us in the coming years. So this first slide here, why is that not showing up? Hold on. Let me see if I can.
Flip-flopped on you.
Yeah, why did it do that? Give me a second. Let's just share my screen and that might be easier. Sorry.
Don't worry about it.
Nothing like awkward silence. There we go. All right. Okay. So this slide here is really going to be the bulk of what's going to affect us because it changes the homestead deductions over time. So one part is it's phasing out the standard homestead deduction, and it's going to be eliminated completely in 2030, and it's going to increase the supplemental homestead deduction up until 2031 and then thereafter. So basically what this means is by 2031 we are only going to be taxed on about a third of the gross assessed value of our home. It also adds a new property tax deduction for all property in the 2% bucket, which is agriculture, non-homestead residential properties, so apartments, rentals, etc.
Including short-term rentals.
Yes, so
I
they
know,
don't
which
get
I
the
always-
homestead
yeah, which I
deduction.
have-
Yes,
yeah.
they're capped at 2% of their net assessed value for tax liability. They also enacted some credits, so these are going to be stackable. Property tax credit of $150 for homeowners over age 65, $125 for disabled homeowners, $250 for disabled veterans, and then everybody will get a property tax credit if they're a homestead of 10% or $300, whichever is less. There are some other things in there which I'm not going to cover. I just wanted to kind of hit on some of these key points here. Additionally, there were changes to business personal property tax. It increases the de minimis business personal property tax exemption over several years. So currently it's at $80,000. So a business could have up to $80,000 in equipment that they're not paying tax on. So once they hit $80,000, everything over that, they're getting taxed on. So that's changed to $1 million in 2025 and $2 million in 2026. The depreciation floor is also removed. However, they did enact some rules so it would protect TIF bonds and business personal property in those allocation areas. After all that, one provision that they did enact, which is helpful, appears to be helpful, is give us the ability to adopt our own local income tax. So the current structure goes away after 2027. So in 2027, we will have the ability to adopt our own because our our lit revenue that we're currently getting from the county will cease to exist. So there's a cumulative cap rate of 2.9%. I don't know all the logistics. I think we're still waiting on some guidance and more information about how this will all work, as far as maybe, what order people adopt them in, because again, you can only have up to 2.9% total. So because we're over 3,500, we will be able to adopt. However, we don't know at this time what that means revenue-wise, because the Department of Revenue does not have that data broken out into, it's just by county. If you live in the county, you're paying local income tax, and it's going back to your county. So again, they'll be paying it to the town. So what does this mean for us? Over time, we're going to see a reduction in net assessed value, and or it's significantly going to slow the growth of that assessed value. I mean, our property values we've seen the trend up over the years, right? Which gives us a bump in our certified net assessed value, and that's how our tax rates are based. Unfortunately, though, the increasing tax rates, which is probably going to result because we have our net assessed value times our tax rate equals our levy. Our levy is controlled, right? So if our certified, our CNAV is down here, we have to have a higher tax rate to get to our levy to collect our revenue. And that's going to increase circuit breaker credits. Anybody have any questions so far? Yes, sir.
Is the circuit breaker still based on the value of your house? It's not based on the deduction, is it?
So the circuit breaker is based on, so if you had a house that was, say, $300,000, after all your deductions, your net assessed value is $100,000. If it's a homestead, your max tax liability would be $1,000. So it's 1% of that net assessed value. If it's rental property, it's 2%. If it's business, it's 3%.
So if the home's valued at $300,000, the tax would be $1,000 on it?
In 2030, because it's slowly
Well,
going, right?
Okay, so your gross assessed value and your net assessed value are two different things. So your gross assessed value is, when they send you your assessment letter in April,
Which
right?
one's the circuit breaker based on? Your gross, isn't it?
Your net, because you're taxed based on your net assessed value. And all of those net assessed values in our jurisdiction added together is what makes the town's certified net assessed value.
Mine's way too much then.
Well, now, there are certain things that are outside of that tax cap.
The school.
For example, the school referendum, debt service levies also. So if you're taxed, but I could pull up a example
I
tax
just
bill, but
wondered
I don't have one in
what
this
the circuit
slideshow.
breaker- what value the circuit breaker was, because if the house was staying the same value, it wouldn't change that. But the way you explained it, it's the after your deduction value.
So, yeah, but if the tax rate was low enough that you didn't reach that max, then there's no circuit breaker. You're still paying your full tax bill. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So, we don't just get money from property taxes, we get it from other places. Vehicle excise tax, local income tax, gas taxes, wheel taxes. We do not have a wheel tax. The county does not have one either. One quick note about that is another change that they made in legislation this year was that they first talked about saying you have to adopt your own wheel tax if you want to get community crossings, and then they took that out. However, they did incentivize it, so there'll be extra distributions after the fact that will go to communities that do adopt a wheel tax. So just throwing that out there.
Is there a minimum on that?
That's what I was just gonna ask, like, if we just did the teeniest, tiniest wheel tax just to qualify for those incentives.
I can get information on it. I think you have to be a community over 5,000, which we're just over that, so we would be eligible to do that if we wanted to. Riverboat taxes, cigarette and alcohol beverage taxes, and then local receipts, so licenses and permits, contractor licenses, building permits, charges for other services, fines and fees, and earnings on investment. So all this revenue has to be calculated, and then we have to be able to fund our budgets. Property tax levied funds include our general fund, MVH, debt service, fire, park, and CCD. This is just an illustration of our levy growth over the last several years. Again, this is controlled by the maximum levy growth quotient. So the state determines what that is, and they say you can only get a 4% increase or a 3% increase. Next year, it is going to be capped at 4%. We know this for certain. It would have been a little bit higher, I think, right about 4.8%, but again, they capped it. So the maximum levy is the maximum amount of property tax dollars that may be levied in any budget year. So the levy is strictly referring to property tax dollars. Any more questions? Can you guys see that?
Yeah, really well.
Okay, good. Just a quick illustration of the MLGQ over the years. Again, 4% would have been higher, but here we are, stuck at 4%. Okay, this is a little snippet of our 1782 fund report. So after the whole budget is done, and before we get our budget order, after DLGF approves our budget, they send us a 1782. And this is all our property tax driven funds or the funds that the DLGF has oversight over and they approve it. We have other home rule funds, but we'll get to that. So I don't have a little pointer, but I just want to run through a couple things here. So rainy day, that's on there because we appropriated $100,000. I think that seems to be past practice, just to have it there in case we need it, but that's not a fund that can actually get property tax revenue. We have to underspend basically and save money to transfer it to rainy day. Our general fund, debt service fund, the DLGF works that for us because there's a statutory operating balance of 15%. So they have all our information. We have to do like debt confirmations every year where they have our amortization schedule and whatnot. MVH, I just want to quickly point out that MVH is a combination of two funds really on our fund ledgers, but as far as budgeting purposes, it's all seen as one. So MVH unrestricted, that's where property tax revenue goes, and MVH restricted. So we get an MVH distribution on a monthly basis. Half of that has to go to restricted, half of that has to go to unrestricted. I do believe there may be a change coming to that next year if we go through a certain process with our road asset management plan, and if we can certify we have a PACER rating of 6, I believe, that we would be eligible to do a 60-40 distribution. But MVH restricted is basically just for road paving and reconstruction. Municipal fire, park and rec, cumulative capital improvement, cigarette tax. We only get less than $10,000 a year in that fund, but that's just another one that the DLGF has to approve. And CCD. As you can see here, that shows a rate of 4 cents. We did just reestablish it, so next year's budget, it'll be at a rate of 5 cents. And that is directly tied to our assessed value. So whatever that number happens to be times or divided by 100 times 5 is going to be the revenue that we generate next year for CCD. But that is unknown because we don't have our certified net assessed value yet. That should be here at the beginning of August. Okay. Yeah, so I don't have any revenue estimates yet from the DLGF, but that's coming. Any questions about this screen here? No? Okay. Am I boring everybody to death?
No, I'm waiting, I'm just holding my breath till we find out what our net assessed value is gonna look like next year.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, as those deductions phase in, it's probably going to start dropping. So I don't think next year is going to be as drastic as, the years after that. So our max levy, again, we got a 4% increase. So this is just a simple illustration of that. We have our normal max levy. There's an adjustment for the CCD fund. Those numbers combined have to be under our working max levy. and that's the number down there at the bottom. We want to get as close to that as possible so we don't leave any money on the table, which we will. Certified net assessed value. This, I've got it going all the way back to 2017. As you can see, it's been on the rise, which is good. However, we don't know what next year's is going to be yet. So property values are determined, deductions and credits are applied, and the net assessed value is certified to the DLGF in August. And then we will get that information to plug into all our budget forms. Just another illustration, our property tax levy versus what we're actually collecting. The red line is lower than what we're actually levying, almost 100% due to property tax credits or circuit breaker losses. Tax caps, circuit breaker losses, those mean the same thing. Circuit breaker loss, just another picture of what we've seen over the last several years, and it's been on the decline. So as our CNAV increases, usually that means that our circuit breakers are going to decrease. So I expect that number to trend upwards. So this year, even though we levied $3.5 million in property taxes, we collected, or going to collect, closer to 3.1 because of the circuit breaker losses. This is kind of a picture of our budget summary as a whole. So the levied funds that we just talked about are up there, as well as pretty much every other fund that we included in our budget. Not included here are sewer and stormwater, because those are enterprise or utility funds, and then TIF funds, or the redevelopment commission funds. So like LIT, for example, we budgeted $566,861, and that was pretty spot on to what we believed we were going to collect this year. Some of the other funds are kind of the same. We do still have opioid unrestricted funds and restricted funds to think about for next year too. Just want to make a quick note there. Anybody have any questions about this screen or what you're seeing here? So the first column is what we actually budgeted. Now this doesn't include any revenues, right? This is just what we said we're going to appropriate and budget to spend. Our levy, what we're collecting in property tax levy, and then after the circuit breakers. So again, we say we're levying X number of dollars, but we don't actually get that many dollars. We get less than that. All right, so next steps. All right, step one, here we are, budget planning meeting and develop a timeline. I think we already discussed doing budget adoption in September, so the hearing in September and then the budget adoption 2 weeks later. Again, it's very important that we have a quorum and enough voting members to pass the budget, or we could run into some issues that we really don't want to run into. So I think we're looking at either the 9th and the 23rd of September, or we could do the hearing on the 23rd of September and then the budget adoption on the 14th. But I really don't like that all that much, because we have to have our budget done and adopted no later than November 1st. All right, so clerk treasurer prepares revenue estimates. I am waiting for some information to come my way. I'm looking at where we're at through June 30th. Capital needs assessed, prioritized, and planned. We're going to talk about that here soon. Clerk treasurer sends budget spreadsheets to department heads, fine tunes and discusses with the council members. So I will have the spreadsheets to all the department heads hopefully by the end of this week, and then we can tinker with them, discuss stuff, and go from there. Determine budget adjustments. Then I will work on preparing all the budget forms in Gateway, getting the notice to taxpayers submitted, which is published through Gateway. That's just the notice of our public hearing for the budget. We hold the public hearing, we adopt the budget, submit it to DLGF. We get our 1782 and then a budget order at the beginning of the year. And then we get some months off and we do it all over again. All right, a few more thoughts. I do want to point out that our general fund is still facing a revenue shortfall. We had a $200,000 temporary loan from LIT to the general fund that has not been paid back yet, because if we pay it back, we're going to have the same thing before property tax distributions come in the fall. So I think we need to have more discussions on how to fix that, or what we can do. That's mainly due to revenue that did not come in as planned. So big picture, I think we need to find ways to reduce spending and plan ahead for uncertain future and be conservative, so we don't continue to have this same discussion year after year. Quick recap of the budget calendar timing requirements. I kind of hit on that. We have to advertise 10 days before the public hearing. The public hearing and adoption have to be 10 calendar days apart. After that's done, I'll submit the signed ordinance and all the forms to Gateway. That all has to be done within 5 business days. They're very strict about meeting these calendar and statutory requirements to get our budget approved. So just keep that little nugget in the back of your head. All right, so that's, I guess, the first part of my slideshow. Does anybody have any questions before I run through the last few slides?
I only have one, but not on the details. Only, would you be willing to share that with us after this is over? I'm realizing how much I appreciate this being live streamed and then kept online, so that I can later go back and review all of that, because it is a lot to digest, and I would love to be able to sit there and go over that a couple more times.
Sure,
Thanks.
of course.
With your explanation that's recorded.
Oh, of course.
Thanks.
Do you
All right.
take questions from the audience?
Go ahead.
Hi, Jennifer Clerk.
Hi.
The reason, okay, in years past, I know that the former clerk treasurer has had, maybe like the financial consultants
Mhm.
help her out with stuff. Those kind of things, are you gonna be doing those yourself?
So my plan is, last year I worked like side by side with Baker Tilly to prepare everything, and we basically did the same work, right, and collaborated. This year I'm going to prepare everything and have the financial advisor review it all, because it's too important to.
No, I know,
Make a
but then
mistake,
you ran into
but-
trouble because the former clerk treasurer didn't have somebody proofread her stuff,
Correct.
and they ended up in a big mess.
I will not do
But,
that.
so I think, are you gonna be saving money compared to what has been spent in the past?
Yes.
Yeah, because you seem confident enough to do a lot of the stuff yourself that
Thank
wasn't,
you.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I've-
I really applaud that, and I think that that's really good, and you're very well prepared.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I just want to quickly run through a couple things. Our capital assets that we've been able to knock off our list. Last year it was this big spreadsheet and ugly, and nobody could read it because there was so much up there. So we were, like I said, able to get quite a few things knocked off that list, maybe a little earlier than planned. A lot of this was made possible with ARPA funds and some other grant dollars. So fire department, we purchased supply hose, fixed the roof and gutters, purchased Jay's new vehicle, replaced outdated radios. I forget the number, but I want to say 10-ish, 10 to 12.
It was 12 or 13, because we got a little bit.
Okay, 12 or 13. Here we go. 4 sets of dive gear, an Aqua Ice sonar, 4 sets of bunker gear. Police department, they purchased a drone, some training pistols, simunition, which is training ammunition, training helmets, replaced a few radios. I believe that was 3 radios. Setoxa fluid analyzers, those are like drug detection analyzers. New generator, that is in progress, not done yet, but we have a contract for it. Hopefully they'll start soon. They purchased 3 Durangos in 2024 and then 2 this year. Police station renovations are complete. Park department, they purchased an Atlas Bobcat mini loader with various attachments. I hear it's a really great piece of equipment. purchased some swings and frames for Hawthorne Park in Indian Springs. That was left over from Go Bond proceeds. And we have a generator from the PD that's coming down to Hawthorne Park, and that will be installed down there. Public Works Department, we got a new F-250, a new F-650, and purchased a leaf vac. The leaf vac was a combination of MVH and ARPA funds. Building and Development, road paving in 2024 and 2025. Those were community crossings grants. Those amounts there are just construction costs, but I will note that was 75-25, so the state paid for 75% of that cost, which is really nice. Porter Beach access improvements, $536,000 of preliminary engineering, funded entirely by the FLAP grant dollars. I do believe there's a presentation on that later this month, 16th. Sewer, 2 lift station replacements for $1.5 million. And stormwater, we have 2 ongoing projects, or one about ready to start and another just awarded. North Bailey and then Carlson Corners. So as you can see by all those numbers, that was a lot. We've really been able to do quite a bit in the last year and a half. So Town Hall, AV equipment upgrades, all this equipment here, generator install, not done yet, but in progress, and we were able to replace all the computers with ARPA funds. So we're ready for Windows 11. And that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That little checklist of successes was really helpful for my morale. Thank you.
High five, everybody.
High five.
All right.
So you said that you were working with the department heads on that spreadsheet regarding capital improvements. I saw, though, that you emailed a spreadsheet out to us just about an hour ago. What's the status of that one?
Yeah, that's the copy of what I have here on the screen. And
Okay.
this is gonna be just a little bit tricky because there's just, it's a big spreadsheet, so it's hard to fit. So everybody's is updated except for the police department. We don't have any of their updates yet, but the rest of them have been updated today. I appreciate everybody's quick turnaround on that. I did, before I forget to mention it, going through here, we don't have any road paving projects included in here, I think. Okay, maybe that would be good to throw in here, but again, this is a, living, breathing document, subject to all sorts of changes. So I don't know where you want to start, or who wants to discuss something first, but it's all yours.
I'll start by admitting that I don't know where to start, only because
Go away.
every time I've asked anyone, well, what do you think that it might actually look like? The answer is, I don't know, we'll see. We haven't gotten any estimates yet. So I don't know if we're looking at, okay, we got to maintain the status quo, because even though costs have risen, right, like we are also susceptible to inflation costs, and our employees require cost of living raises to try to keep up with half of the inflation rate, right? I think is the best we've ever been able to do. And so I don't know if we're talking about we're gonna barely be able to maintain the status quo, or we need to make like deep cuts, or it's not gonna start looking scary until 2027, 2028. And so I don't know how to start this conversation, because I don't have that answer yet.
Right. Well, I think we would be best served to, honestly, not increase the budget next year, and that's gonna be tricky. We have a surplus in a couple funds, but other funds are really, really tight. And like lit, for example, we do have a surplus in there, but we're gonna need to lean on that revenue when tax revenue stops dropping. So we don't wanna hit that too hard either.
Because the
you
property
know?
tax reductions, as I see it, like they're being, the old way of calculating is being phased out while they have a new thing being phased in. And so 2026, if I understand it correctly, the difference is not expected to be huge, but by the time we get to 2028, we're talking about losing what, up to 2/3 of our property tax revenue?
We
More
really-
than half,
Yeah,
right?
we
More than
really
half.
don't have a whole lot of accurate data yet.
Right.
And, you know, things could change, right? They could go back to the drawing board and make some changes in the coming years, we don't know. But, our certified net assessed value is going to decrease, if not hold the line, but more likely it's gonna decrease because of all the deductions, so.
We also have no idea what the county government's gonna do
Right.
as far as raising any taxes that they can raise.
Right.
So if they raise the lit rate this year, I know that they've been talking about that. That wouldn't go into effect until 2026. So that would be 2026 and 2027, and then that's it. In 2027, everybody has to readdress it and
Right.
adopt it,
Right.
readopt it, because that current structure goes away.
Right. The only lit money that we'll receive after 2027 is lit money that we decide to pass, like a lit rate that we decide to pass. The county won't be filtering any lit funds down to us after 2027, right?
But, you know, that also assumes that there's no amendments that will be put on this fall or next year to this. So-
Right, which we know there will be plenty of.
So I think, you know, if we want to talk about capital projects, the first thing would be to discuss some of these things and prioritize them, you know, what's a need versus a want.
Sure.
What can we stretch? Where can we make it work? What do we need the most? How do we prioritize those things? You know, some funds don't have anything built in their budget for capital, you know, MVH is one of the budgets that does have that. He's able to purchase a truck or whatnot, right? The park department, maybe a little bit. You know, the police department does not. The fire department really does not have a lot either. So, you know, we're looking at other funds like LIT and CCD.
And our CCD next year should be slightly more than it was this year. That was what, 140?
If our assessed value stays the same or increases, right?
So again, we
So
won't know till August.
it's, what's that?
We won't know again until August.
Yeah, we don't know until that certified net assessed value comes out.
Okay.
This just makes it hard to make decisions.
The CCD should be higher even if we take a pretty good hit because you're increasing the rate 25%. So unless you lose 25%, you should at least get what we're getting now, right? It went from 4 cents to 5,
Right.
25% increase.
So,
Unless we lose 25% of our assessed value, it'll at least be what it is this year.
it's also
That sounds
affected,
logical.
my mouse is not cooperating here. It's also affected by circuit breaker credits, right? So we are this year getting 140 something or other. Let me open my laptop. But after circuit breaker losses, we get less than that. So if circuit breakers go up, that's also affecting our CCD fund. So if we had, I think the example I used in my PowerPoint was $350 million in assessed value. Right now we're at 352. We would get $175,000 in CCD fund revenue, not accounting for any circuit breakers. So our circuit breaker values have typically been between 11 and 12% over the last several years. So I think it's safe to assume we're going to lose at least minimum 10% of that to circuit breakers.
But with the higher rate, even if it was, you know, higher than that, you'd still come out at least what you had this year for CCD.
With the higher rate, yeah, yeah, so, I mean, that's helpful.
25% cut to play with on that, and that fund, and that's probably the only fund that went up 25%, right?
Yeah,
Well, let's see. So, if we start at the top, we've got sidewalk improvements in Porter Beach, lot improvements, that are slated between now and 2029. Mike, what would you say, well, Mikey and Jamie, would be the highest priority in that list? The $30,000 sidewalk improvements for this year?
Well, it's always the same budget and it's too small, so we don't ever have enough money for sidewalks. But I was in LaPorte July 4th. They spent a lot of money on their downtown main roads and their street neighborhood sidewalks are atrocious. I don't feel so bad about our sidewalks now. They're just, I mean, I've never seen any, you can't even walk on the sidewalk. Some of them are gone, there's no sidewalk. But our sidewalks, I'm concerned we don't want people tripping and falling. So Jamie's purchase of the grinding machines helped a lot because they've done a lot of sidewalks downtown and other places. So we haven't even spent, you know, the usual money this year that we would spend on sidewalks. I haven't put that out yet. Just trying to save
And
money.
that's a
He
budgeted
saved
line
it.
item.
It's just a line item, but he saved a lot of money doing grinding with the guys over there. So
Okay.
I really feel much better about our sidewalks after I went to LaPorte. Theirs are horrible. I hope they're not watching. But anyway, they're terrible. So they just spent all their money improving the main roads to make it look pretty with all the grant money or whatever they got in the main tourist areas, but the neighborhoods are awful. This isn't that bad when you walk around. Our sidewalks are pretty good. And again, they've done a lot of improvements on it. So those aren't very big numbers,
Okay.
but
yeah.
we haven't spent that much. We haven't spent anything as far as redoing big sidewalks this year because they've ground so many of them. I just put them off until we have to do something. But
Okay, I like that answer.
the Porter Beach parking lot's just, you know, I sent an email about that, but you're just gonna lose the entire parking lot. So pretty soon there won't be anything there but sand. The pavement's falling apart. The only way to repave that is to take all the sand off of it, which is a monumental chore to even restripe it. And we're getting complaints about it all the time. They can't dig the sand out fast enough and keep up with the sand. It's impossible. There's just
Minimum of
too
2
much
days a
sand.
week with the loader for a couple of hours.
Yeah, 2 or 3 days.
To keep that road open.
Plus
and-
driving down and driving back, which takes, what, 20 minutes or 15 minutes?
Yeah, it's not
So
fast.
it's a lot of manual, or it's a lot of man hours being spent to maintain what's really a terrible parking lot. It's not big enough to park cars on. We make a lot of revenue off of it, but it's gonna cost a fortune to redo that parking lot to make it usable, or we find another plan for a parking lot. 'Cause that's just,
Motor vehicle, that's a road, right, Mike?
that's a road right away. It's not really a parking lot.
Right, so can't you use, MVH funds for that then?
Well, you could, but it's gonna require a lot of money to dig all the sand off, put it somewhere,
Can,
and keep it from blowing
can
back
we
on there
include
while
it
they're
in next
paving
year's
it.
community crossing jobs?
Well, technically, it's a road, so you could do that if we wanna spend community crossings money on it.
I
Our
mean, that's
other-
Where
what,
we
a
only paid-
25-75%
It's
match,
25,
right?
75 now, but it changes to 20%, 2080,
it's 80-20, yes.
is it next year?
Next year.
Yeah, so we pick up 5%, so if we wanna do that, we need to start planning on it, because you have to pave that off-season. So you'd have to start working on it after September, after Labor Day, and you have a very short window of time to get it done. So we'd have to start, you know,
Right
probably
away.
last week, start working on it and figure out a way to do it. But you have to get all the sand off and put it someplace,
Right.
and it's 12, 15 feet high. So as you dig the sand off, the north side just blows back on. if you put up a wall, it's gonna blow over, it piles up on the other side and blows over the top. So you can build as tall a wall as you want to, but it's not gonna stop the sand. So we've gotten rid of a lot of sand through construction projects, so they've removed some sand, that's helped a little bit.
We probably got another 10, 12 spots on the east end of the parking
Yeah,
lot.
that we can't even get to. Yeah.
That we dug out.
Yeah, but the whole lot's never exposed because of the
No,
sand.
if the wind blows, it's half full.
Yeah, we're fighting nature, like I
Right.
said, so if we want to redo that lot, it's going to be a pretty big task to do. But if we want to do it as a community crossings program, it is a road right-of-way, and we could do that.
The other problem though, and Corinne might have this on her list later on, the money we use for paving, we had a specific amount every year.
And,
Next year, we're not gonna have anywhere near that amount. So we either do a very small project or pass a
or
year
pass, yeah.
and do another regular size one.
Yeah.
But she could tell us more about that.
So this year's project, we're finishing up Porter Cove, so that'll be completely done, and then 20th Street. We still have Dune Meadows, Wagner Hills, we haven't paved, that's a pretty wide road. We still have Mineral Springs, we left that off until the bridge is done. So between Beam and 20, we're not gonna pave that until they're done with the bridge, because otherwise you're tearing half of it back up, so.
I can't recall the conditions of those roads. Do those need to
Dune
be
Meadows
done
Drive
yesterday?
has a lot of potholes in it.
Lots of
Then we
puns.
have the whole Michigami neighborhood, which we want to combine with a stormwater project that we already got a study done on that. That's been pushed back because it's not as heavily trafficked, but it needs repaired, it needs replaced. So that subdivision hasn't been done yet at all. We did a lot of paving in the last few years. We've done a ton of paving with the community crossings program. So I keep a list of things haven't been done yet, and then we sit down and go over those and figure out which roads are in the worst shape based on PASER ratings and whatnot, and what our budget can handle, and that's how we pick the roads. But, I mean, yeah, if we wanted to do the parking lot, we'd skip a whole bunch of other paving, we wouldn't do any roads. So that's a prioritization issue. What's more important? Probably spend 3 years worth of revenue on paving the parking lot.
Why do you think it's gonna be so expensive, Mike? Just ask.
They gotta keep this.
Dig it all out, keep
yeah,
sand off of it.
Keep the sand off.
Yeah, and then you
of
get all
it.
the sand off and then,
That's a lot of extra labor to do that. And then to try and pave it, they're gonna have to mill all that off and then pave it, or pave on top of it and just make it thicker. Stripe it and then back to it's just a lot of extra labor of moving sand, keeping sand off, than just paving a road.
I know that, but I don't think
It's
it's
just
that
a
much.
lot of extra labor. Well, unless you bid it, you're not gonna know, but I think it's gonna be extremely expensive. So, that's my opinion on it.
How much does it cost us to send a project like that out to bid? Because we do,
Well, the design on that would be really easy.
would it,
Because it's just a square, a rectangle, and you're just saying from A to B, mill, that would be really, really inexpensive design-wise. That's so simple, it's not even funny.
all right.
Like $5,000, probably all you need to
So
spend.
maybe it's in our best interest to
Yeah.
get some
Because you'd have to get that out to
real
bid,
numbers.
and have to be ready to go after Labor Day, because your window's pretty short. You know,
Right.
a month and a half.
So
Yeah, it'd be pushing
Short
it this
for
year.
this
I
It'd be,
think.
it'd be really hard to
really-
get done.
And
Spring would be hard, because spring you have so much rain, you're trying to bat around the rain, and then by the time the place, so everything opens up in March, late, it depends on the weather, March or April for plants. You've gotta be done with that before Memorial Day.
with
So-
such a small
It's
project,
tough. Yeah.
a lot of people are up booked through the season.
So we could take a shot at it and see what happens, but that's a special paving.
I don't
project.
see funds for it outside of community crossing. So either we neglect it until we just don't have it anymore, or we find a way to use community crossing funds for it, right? I think
Maybe leave it on the schedule for 2 years or 3 years? And
Well, we put it
reevaluate it
on-
next year?
What's it on, 2027?
Yeah.
That's probably where it ought to be,
that's where it ought
because
to be.
then we can get that locked and loaded beforehand
Okay,
and figure it out. But if you're talking 20%, that could be included with, right now, what we've been budgeting is 800,000, and then 25% is 200,000. So, as Jamie noted, we'll lose some money, but we're gonna pick 5% up.
Right.
So let's just say you do $600,000 of paving times, 20, or, 20%, it's 150 grand. Well, I don't know if we'll have 150 grand, but we should have enough to do that and something.
Small amount, yeah.
Small paving project. So we can budget that in the same year it's in and just maintain it as we go. People have been complaining they can't see the striping. It's the same thing. You can't restripe that unless you take all the sand off.
And even if
Just
you
can't
do,
stripe
the striping with as much pushing as we
Yeah,
do, the
it
sand
scrapes it
with
off.
loader, it
Right,
isn't
the
gonna be
weather
there long.
practically sandblasts the paint
Yeah.
off of there
Yeah.
quickly
So I
anyway.
understand it's hard to see the stripes, but people can just park where they fit and that's about all they can do as
Yeah,
long as they
just
don't
park
parallel
next to
park.
each other, leave enough space for doors to open,
Yeah.
we don't
So
need.
I think we leave it where it's at and that
Okay.
fits good. The sidewalk stuff we're working on, again, Jamie's guys are saving a lot of money on the sidewalks right now, so.
But we do
We're
have
not-
a lot of ones that need
Yeah,
raised
we
or
need
just
to
plain
do, we
replaced.
need to raise them and
repairs.
that's where the 30 grand comes in. We
Okay.
just pick that number and give them enough to spend the 30 grand, so. It's a small number, really.
Like I was gonna say, the Dune Meadows, there's a lot of cracking
Yeah, it's a lot of cracks,
throughout. so-
potholes.
Yeah,
We looked at that, we had that on the list about, I think it was about 5 years ago. And when we went and looked at it, it's got underlying issues. We were just gonna do a 2-inch mill and fill, that would not fix the problem. We have switched to 4-inch mill and fills because if you do 4 inches, you get rid of a lot of the underlying issues. You can't do as many miles, but it gets done and it's not junk in 5 years. Some of the stuff we paved with 2-inch in 16 and 17 is already all cracked up. So we quit doing that just because it's better to go 4 inches deep. I even convinced Mr. Schnadenberg to do that.
Okay.
But you get a better quality product, you just don't have to pave it again in 5 years, so. I think we leave that where it's at and then
Okay,
we're not gonna, if we spend the 30 grand each year, I'd be surprised, but, we're trying to do what we can with the sidewalks now and not go overboard. But we do need to get rid of some tripping hazards.
okay,
That's a long-winded answer, sorry.
that's okay.
That's
I
fine.
I appreciate
I'm
the
good at that.
detailed answers, but, now we've only got 10 minutes to hit the rest of them.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Jay, can you tell us the same thing about your section? What would you say is the most important thing that needs to be prioritized? Is it already in order of priority?
Well, I think it's mostly in order.
Okay.
One of the big things that I added on there was bunker gear.
Mm-hmm.
Our DNR grant has not been coming through for lack of funding the last couple years. And, I mean, they open it up for us to apply as normal, but the funding hasn't come through, I don't think, for the last 2 years. So I don't know if they had, imagine, they haven't awarded this year's yet. All I get is updates on funding not going through. And the problem is, every year that passes, I lose 4 sets of gear that expire. Because NFPA puts a 10-year lifespan on them. So, we're 3 years behind, we didn't get that 4 sets, recently, but I'm behind the 8 ball, plus just stuff that gets wore through. 4 sets a year barely kept up with what I needed, and I was getting to the point where we needed to maybe get an extra 4 sets one year, which was great when that 4 sets fell on our lap,
Yeah.
but now that the grant hasn't been coming through, I'm in worse shape. So it's probably a big priority, because that's my number one, guys can't go on calls without bunker gear.
Okay.
You know, the engine's a big deal, but that's got a little bit of time. Another big issue that I've been noticing with the station is the concrete in front of the concrete pads that are in front of the bay doors, especially on the old public works side. It's all starting to sink, it's cracking really bad, it's getting uneven, it's causing a drop between the station and the outside. So I start to fear that eventually creates a sinkhole of some sort, because water's getting in there, rushing underneath the asphalt pad. So we have some structural issues there. It's even, I think, it's caused the building to sink in a couple areas. So those are the 2 main ones that I've added. Some of those are projected out, 2029 for some new vehicles, the potential rescue truck, and that's kind of just a maybe. Depends on what shape it is when we get to that point. Right now, I'm not seeing that that's gonna have to be done by 2029. Brush truck, again, that's an 85. If we can get that done by 2029, that'd be great, but I'm not gonna say that's a high priority either.
Okay.
I have some ideas that might, be a little cheaper than $100,000 and make it more of a useful unit than just a brush truck that sits there. Outdated radios, we still have to keep on that path. We're grateful we got at least chipped away at some of that this year. But it was a very minor chip. Need to get the same amount of number of radio portables, and then we still need to replace most of the mobile radios in the fire apparatus to make the system complete. The stoplight activation, that's just on that schedule with that grant that we've been working on for years. Still need to replace that Explorer, which hopefully we can look at with some of this by the end of this year possibly, how that rotation works. And we still would still like to get the bathrooms taken care of. That have leaky toilets and peeling floors, no dividers.
Right. Okay.
So
I have a question for-
all of it's pretty flexible, but again, the bunker gear is probably my highest priority, because without being able to protect my firemen, I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place.
Okay.
Jay, quick question on for the fire engine. That's the single largest item, obviously. We don't have any funds set aside yet, do we, to go
No,
towards that?
I have had some minor discussions with the RDC about participating in that purchase. Was kind of when we know we're ready to pull the trigger 2 years or so in advance, so they can do the budgeting and stuff for that. But just been with a couple members that have come to me and asked future needs and things, and nothing concrete.
In previous conversations, it's kind of mission critical. I mean, if you lose that, we're.
Well, we have to maintain two, because if one ever breaks down, then we have none, if we only have one.
Right.
And that engine that we're looking at replacing this year will turn 25 years old.
So it just seems like we should have the goal of setting aside a solid plan for how that will be fully funded by 2029, whatever that looks like.
Right.
But to have it, so each year we have a set dollar amount that's our goal, and where it's gonna come from and how we should
And,
get
and
there.
the important thing to keep in mind on that is I don't know what the rotation is now, I haven't been really paying attention, but it's a 2 to 3 year process from the time we decide we're gonna do it to the time it's spec,
Exactly.
bid, awarded, and then construction phase starts. It's a pretty long process, and it's just, since COVID got even longer.
Yeah, so I think we have to, I would think maybe a goal of this year, at least having the architecture of what that looks like, a roadmap for how to get there.
And every year we wait, it's just more money it's gonna cost.
Right.
That's just, our engine now that we purchased in 2020, which we spec'd out and bid to purchase at the end of 2018, I believe it was. If we did that same engine today, we paid a little over $500,000 for it. If we did that engine today, it would be almost $1 million. So,
Can I ask Mike and Jamie to make a note about the concrete that he's talking about, the parking and the sinking by that building? Take a look at it for us and evaluate how that should be prioritized, please.
And
Thank you both.
our parking lot will probably be due in the next couple of years too. It's starting to crack up pretty bad.
Okay.
Our asphalt parking lot.
All right, thank you, Jay. Do we have time? Let's see. Looks like Town Hall, I think we're already familiar with each of those. Parks, Brian, do you want to tell us your absolute most important need coming up?
Sure. They're kind of in priority order
Okay.
already.
Good.
I moved a couple of 2005 things to 2006, just because I don't think we've got the time to get them done this year with
Mhm.
funding. But number one's gonna be that park pickup truck.
Mhm.
It's the one we use every day, and it's been in the repair shop now twice this year, so
Okay.
we're starting to push on it. And then I moved up the backflow preventer for the community building. It's starting to it's not allowing water back into the system, but it is allowing water through, so I don't know if we've got a seals problem or something on it, but it is several years old, several decades old.
You're gonna have to forgive me for asking what a backflow privilege.
So as the municipal water supply comes in,
Uh-huh.
because we are considered a commercial building, we've gotta have a way so that the water doesn't go back into the water system.
Got it.
So it allows it to come in, but then there's a
One-way valve.
flush valve, yeah, one-way valve, so it won't let water back into the system. But somewhere, once you get past that one-way valve, we've got a drip, so.
Okay,
It's gonna cost, it probably is costing us money right now, so that's why I switched that with the alarm system.
Okay.
And everything else that's past 2027, I would say, is more of a want than a need.
okay.
So, as we see where we're at with revenues and tax levies and everything, and see what we can afford to do or what we keep Band-Aiding.
Is that $3,000 an accurate price?
That is just an estimate.
Okay. I
Off
was
the
gonna say, because if it's that amount of money, we could just get it done with lit this year and be done with that.
I can get some
Right,
quotes.
especially if we're paying
Costing
for
money.
water, we're
Well,
not using.
I'm already planning, because I was looking at, and I needed to add 2 computers, so I was gonna come to lit for that actually for this year, because I didn't think about it until Corinne said something about replacing the stuff to make it Windows 11 compatible. Both of our computers down at the park are not Windows 11 compatible, so.
Okay. Thank you, Jamie Spanier.
Yeah, I can be quick. Ours is the same exact as last year, except I moved a couple things down. Our new addition would be a grapple truck in 2030. It's gonna be quite expensive, but at that point, our current one will be 10 years old. And the amount of stuff that saves us, manpower wise, just gotta look at replacing it, at that 10-year mark. And, if we get closer and it's still rolling along, that might be something we put off, but.
Okay.
Talked to Corinne about, without trying to ask for other funds, doing a 2-year lease purchase, spreading the cost over 2 years. So that's our only addition. Everything else is the same with some updated prices, or I moved a couple things down, I think, a year.
Okay.
And I, also, that is, last year we had 3 trucks on there in case we didn't get, the
Lightning.
electric ones. And we got 1 truck at the end of last year to take care of that, so there's 1 truck there now, a regular truck instead of the hybrid one or electric ones. And should the electric ones come in, we could swap it out for the cost of that truck, but I'm not real confident anymore.
Yeah. It was a beautiful idea, wasn't it? All right, so police isn't ready yet. Mike already went through. Okay,
And all our sewer stuff that we had was same as last year.
yeah, okay. All right, does anybody have stuff to add or question?
We can go over those later,
Okay,
next meeting.
Good.
all right, I think so,
Sewer storm, that was the last one on there, but
yeah.
That's the master plan. We got a grant. Still supposedly sending 30 grand to us pretty soon, so
Yeah,
I'm waiting.
okay. All right, thank you very much. All right. So, Corinne, we should get those estimates next month. Do you think it is in our best interest to go ahead and plan on our next budget meeting being second Tuesday in August? what is that, the 12th? Do you think we'll have numbers by then? Or will that be too early? Should we try to schedule it on a different day?
Well, I think that that would be ideal, however, I'm not gonna be here that day. No. Sorry, I have a clerk treasurer's conference, which is in June every single year, except for this year, it's in August.
Oh, that's right.
So, yeah, Tammy's gonna fill in for me.
They should
that
know
meeting.
better than to mess with our clerk
Right.
treasurers during budget season.
So I don't know if it's possible to have maybe a quick meeting the week before,
On the 19th.
like the first week of August.
Okay.
Hopefully, or, you know, I'll be back 14th, the 15th, that's Friday, I'm sure nobody wants to do that, but, or maybe even the 18th.
So,
But I have to submit, so if we're gonna adopt in September, I have to submit the Form 3 by the 29th.
by the 29th of
So we have
August.
to have our figures, yeah,
All right.
ready to go for
So,
our total budget amount.
tentative budget meeting on the 18th then maybe? Because
Yeah,
I really don't think we can do that with you remotely and away from us.
You might wanna think about maybe something later in July too.
Okay.
Because I know we won't have our CNAV by then, but we'll have some other information that will be helpful.
Okay. All right. We can. All right. Later in July, can we, do you think we'll be able to cover that new information on the 22nd during our regular council meeting, or should we schedule a separate meeting for that?
I think we could cover it.
Let's try to cut, even if that just gives us an extra longer, longer meeting, maybe a 90-minute meeting instead of 60. At least we'll all be here, no one will be traveling, and we can cover it then.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else? Are we good? All right, so do we have a motion to adjourn this budget meeting, and then we'll switch over to a regular council meeting?
So moved.
Thank you so much.